This is Welcome back to the Mentor Roulette grind. This time, we are just playing healers, and for the most part, I feel like we got a pretty normal spread of duties. But the kill test count is still a bit high. Speaking of which, duty 1 is under the shoe as Sage, and we genuinely don't have anything other than doses, so let's do this. For duty 2, we went to Great Gubal Library. First off, it seemed like our Black Mage was rather randomly choosing between single targeting and AoE, and sometimes even did a random mix of it on single target. They also had some trouble with the mechanics, especially on the first boss. A much more funny thing that happened was in regards to the tank. At the start of the duty, they complained that this was, like, the third time they had gotten this in Roulette. Later in the duty, they voiced happiness that they had gotten a good team for once. And when Limit Break was used on the last pack, which is pretty normal stuff, they suggested that it was overkill. Perhaps, considering the Limit Break was a bit late, but what makes this funny is that this tank had a surprising amount of opinions considering their own gameplay. On the two first AoE pulls, they used Sheltron once each. After that point, the only defensive cooldown they used in the entire duty was Divine Veil, and one time they used Cover somewhat randomly. Admittedly, it didn't matter that much since I was the one healing, but there's always something funny about someone having a lot of opinions on how others play, while they themselves are making some major mistakes. For duty 3, we went to Sunken Temple of Qarn as White Mage, and this run was with all the big pulls. The team was also overall solid. I think the only weird thing I noticed at all was that it seemed like the Black Mage would sometimes use Scathe before switching to Ice if they barely had the MP left over. The logic of, I want to spend all my MP before I recover, seems sound, but Scathe simply isn't worth the MP to worry about that. This only came up a few times, so there could have been something about a convenient timing in which they wanted to move anyway that I just don't realize. In regards to healing strategy, there was a point where I underestimated how much damage the tank was going to take, and to recover it, I used Swift Cast to send out the Cure 2 a bit faster. Just in case it mattered. Some healers may feel scared of using Swift Cast for anything but a raise because what if I need it? But if the tank dies, Swift Cast raising them is only a maybe on recovering during a big pull, while making sure the tank doesn't die in the first place tends to be a much safer bet. Of course, we cleared the duty in pretty short order. For duty 4, we went to Great Gubal Library again, as Scholar. This run went slightly faster than the last one, but the main thing that stood out to me was that our warrior was aggressively using Vengeance, but just like we saw with the Paladin, didn't really need much of any other cooldown, and if they did, Raw Intuition would save the day of course. In this group, we didn't use Limit Break on the last pack however, in fact, we didn't use the Limit Break at all. For duty 5, we went to Wanderer's Palace as Astrologian. The duty went very well, so let's talk about the mid-section of the dungeon itself, where some players sometimes get confused. After the first boss, there are a few packs to fight, which will drop Lantern Oil. Notably, 3 Lantern Oils. You need 2 of them for the door itself, and then you're met with one more rusted device right as you enter the next room, where the third one is needed. Because the packs are spread out a bit, sometimes one oil is dropped further back and parties can miss them entirely. Now, after that point, there is a non-rusted device in the middle of the big room that needs to be activated. And then there's one more rusted device at the next door, as well as another one in the northeast corner. The oil needed for these devices are dropped by the 2 Tonberries defending the door. A little tip is that as long as the tank is there to pick up the mobs defending the northeastern device, someone else can use it and then open the door, allowing the team to exit the scary room with the big untargetable Tonberries more quickly. Another tip for the final boss is that it gets a buff to one of its attacks if you kill any of the other Tonberries, so simply rushing down the boss before these adds become a problem in the first place is the best strategy. For duty 6, we're back to Under the Turtle as Sage, and we managed to reliably rush through the fight and clear in a single minute. For duty 7, we went to Brayflox Longstop, and the tank, Guthix, I believe, knew me. Hello. Sage's toolkit at this level is pretty limited, but there are ways to optimize it. For damage output, Sage uniquely has an AoE option in Phlegma, so holding a charge at all times you can burst a bit harder on AoE pulls is a solid strategy. Unfortunately, Sage has the weakest dot among all healers at this level, dealing only 300 potency over its duration, making it only worthwhile if the target lives at least 21 seconds of the dot. On the other hand, Sage also has the second best single target fill at this level, bested only by White Mage. For healing, making the most of fizzes on a big pull is crucial, as you don't really have any other cooldowns. When the tank needs a lot of healing, take note that E-Diag is a lot more value per cast than regular Diag, but only if each shield is consumed. One trick to optimize this when the tank is taking a lot of damage is to simply use Euthrasia whenever you can, and then applying the dot to a new target if the tank didn't need a fresh shield, and E-Diag if they do. This way, you can respond faster if the tank's HP spikes. Just remember to not do this on every pull, and only do it when the tank clearly seems to need it, as this sort of makes up for the fact you don't really have any healing options otherwise when the tank suddenly drops. For duty 8, we went to, once again, Ramuh Extreme as White Mage, and apparently with 7 sprouts. Oh my. Right out the gate, we wipe to all Rezzers dying to not getting helped when they get horrified. On the second pull, both I and the other healer do a really cool trick to prolong life. If someone gets horrified and is not saved in time, a well-timed rescue can allow them to dodge the circle AoE, which should let them live until the next opportunity to get saved. Unfortunately, a lot of chaos breaks out, which eventually wipes us out anyway. A key example was that at one point, too many players had the surge buff, making them immune to the tether, but the moment my co-healer got back up, they got snagged with an already empowered tether and immediately died again, which effectively made it impossible for us to raise any more players. For the third pull, we managed to get to the ad phase safely, and then during it, every single DPS dies at least once each. As we progress through the final phase, a key weakness of White Mage rears its head. Between all 4 healers at level 50, only White Mage lacks its job-specific MP management tools entirely, and additionally only has Benediction as a free option, while all other healers have other options. While White Mage has Cure 3 for more burstier healing, it simply isn't needed here, and more smaller options seem to be king. This puts me in the situation that on pretty much all the pulls I end up needing to use Ethers to have enough MP to help with raises. At certain times I even feel compelled to not attack just to have enough MP to do the healing that is needed, which sounds ludicrous, I know, but that is how it is when all of your healing relies on MP. But that said, now with enough practice, we managed to keep the group alive until the finish line. Well done, squad. For duty 9, we went to Titan Normal as Scholar. Not that much to say here, as it is just Titan Normal, but I was told that the proximity AoE in the center does basically no damage. I usually respect it both because, well, nothing else to do while the boss is away, but also because I feel like I recall it doing quite a lot of damage when you stand on top of it. Anyone been splatted by a Titan Normal recently that know? For duty 10, we're back to Tip of the Shoelace. In retrospect, I don't think Bio 1 is even worth using here, since it needs to last 24 seconds to beat Ruin 1, and the fight ended in 20 seconds. For duty 11, we went to Garuda Extreme, and Ilana's here. We get saved due to the ad phase, and then things get really strange. A DPS takes Hirata where she needs to be. Meanwhile, Garuda and Sopana becomes madness in the middle. While they leave momentarily, we manage to clear out Hirata and then finish the ad phase with enough rocks remaining. This means we're onto a bit of a DPS race. If Garuda leaves, we need the tank LB to survive, but if we can kill her first, we don't need it. And a moment before Garuda leaves, our machinist lines up to use the limit break. They do cancel, but that could have been a wipe right then and there. Leading up to this, I had already instructed Ilana to use the tank LB in case they didn't know themselves, so Garuda comes back to the tank LB on time. Although, considering how close Garuda was to death, just the tank's living might have been enough too. Quick 3-minute extreme run. For duty 12, we went to Brayflox Longstop as Astrologian. Relative to Sage, Astrologian is one big overabundance of OGCD options, meaning aside from maybe an aspected benefic here and there, there's much less need to worry about GCD healing. A minor mistake on my part was that I did not make that much use of light speed, but overall, I don't think it mattered much, since Combust is actually solid here. For duty 13, we went to Leviathan Extreme as Sage. On the first attempt, we go in 1 player short due to a disconnect, but ultimately wipe due to lacking damage for the wave tooth at the end due to too many dead players. If not for the fear, we might have been able to force our way to the finish. We also had some other issues like one of our ranged not realizing they were attacking the wrong target, and my co-healer not realizing that they had to think about how they heal the tail tank. On the second pull, a lot of things go wrong, including like half the raid getting feared by the Dreadstorm, and ultimately we don't make the elemental converter in time. On the third attempt, everything goes right and we even all survive the first slide initially. A monk randomly dies during the middle of the fight, and the final Wavetooth does manage to put down its Dreadstorm, but no further deaths occur, leading to a very solid run. A funny detail I never noticed before is that Leviathan regularly does a circle AoE around the healers, and I think also the tanks. This can sometimes lead to someone just dying suddenly if both healers stand near them, or if the healers are overlapping with each other. It might even be targeting players at random, so I'm not sure, but at the end of the day, it typically gets observed as chaos and random damage. For duty 14, we went to Barbariccia Normal as White Mage, and both Fern and Dyson are here. This fight is quite chaotic, just as it is, so let's talk a bit of mechanics. Just a bit. One that tends to catch players is the teasing tangles, which tethers you to a spot. What often goes wrong is that some players feel compelled to immediately try and break the tether by running away, but doing so actually just yoinks you back to it and puts a dot on you, so you really don't want to do that. You just have to dodge mechanics while confined to that area and being slowed down. Aside from that specific confusing mechanic, I feel like everything else just gets you due to the chaos, as this fight goes quite fast for a normal trial. Due to being at a much higher level, I didn't have any major issues keeping the team alive here as White Mage, which probably doesn't come as a surprise, so we clear quite easily. For duty 15 and 16, we went to Friendly Clubs as Scholar. Ruin spam ahoy! There's genuinely no point in using bio at all in this duty, as no enemy will survive for 24 seconds here. For duty 17, we went to Sleep Bombs Incorporated. As usual, the real threat in this duty is the marshmallows, as they can sleep you. If the healer gets sleeped, then any other players getting sleeped too aside from the tank might be in grave danger. Mainly because 2 overlapping explosions can kill and you won't be able to dodge. My advice, if you need it, is to make sure to interrupt the marshmallows specifically if they're targeting the healer with the sleep. Doesn't really matter with anyone else, as the healer can use a Shuna in that case. And finally for duty 18, we went to Bismarck Extreme. We start off well, but 2 players jump a moment too soon and fall to their death for the first attack on Bismarck. We still easily manage to clear that bit in one go, and then get those players back up. After that, it takes a moment before the tanks understand the serpents need to be separated, but we get it done in time. During the chaos, our bard goes down. For our first weather, we get wind, and miraculously, the wind pushes us in a direction where precisely no one gets killed despite players standing near the edge. And this is when things take a turn. You see, on the non-extreme version of this fight, if you don't make it, Bismarck kicks you off back to the island, and that's all well and good. On extreme, however, he will toss you off into the stratosphere, so a bit like Labyrinth of the Ancients, you may have to choose to greed or play it safe. And well, our team sends the limit break in at the very last moment, which is too late, and promptly everyone except the pink lizard that played it safe flies to their death. Is this a recoverable state? Well, as soon as possible I rest a warrior and then full focus on trying to keep myself alive. This includes a reasonably lucky Atlo crit, but I wonder if I needed it. The weather happens to be the lightning one, which is the specific weather where you must not attack the vapor bubbles. Super convenient for us, as we probably didn't have the excess damage to actually deal with them in the first place. As soon as I find time to, I start raising the other healer, and then send the dragon killers on Bismarck. An interesting detail worth considering about the adds in this fight is that if you leave them alone on the island, they start attacking the island itself, so if they are alive while you fight Bismarck, you will be forced to leave at least a tank behind. Furthermore, a mechanic that is only present on Extreme is this stacking debuff when you stand on Bismarck, which causes you to take more and more damage by standing on the boss. Just before I jump on Bismarck, I send a rest for the other tank and then I try my best to attack it without dying, but due to the debuff building and me forgetting to stay away to let it drop, I almost die immediately and have to step away. It appears the debuff caps at 5 stacks, so when I notice there is exactly 1 or maybe 2 hits left to do it, I risk it, and we succeed with me at 420 Blazed HP. Easy game. I think we might have had one more loop before it would be a wipe, but there was no need to risk that if we could avoid it. Yet another set of 4 extremes. I do feel it is a bit more interesting for me when I get extremes as a job that has a lot of impact, such as healers. We also passed 5/9 of the way to their achievement. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support me and my channel more directly, you can become a member like these wonderful people here. You can also alternatively support me through Ko-Fi, link in the description. You can also support the channel by letting the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. Fun fact, Leviathan Extreme's Briny Mirror will only punish upfront healing, which means that White Mage's Regen is not punished, but Astrologian's Aspected benefit is, since it heals a little bit immediately. Similarly, this means that Aspected Helios and Medica 2 are punished, but Sage's Physis is not. This actually makes Sage particularly strong in this fight, as they can just park Cardia on that tank and not get punished for healing them directly.